Welcome back. Nuclear power has been hot, and nuclear power company Oklo is up about 23% over the last year. It was selected by the Department of Energy to further discuss the federal surplus plutonium utilization program. It aims to make Cold War-era plutonium available for use as nuclear reactor fuel. Joining me now in a Fox Business exclusive is the Oklo co-CEO, Jake DeWitte. Jake, great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So I know that President Trump's agenda has all hands on deck, but nuclear is just as important as anything else. Tell us what's going on in terms of nuclear growth and what you're doing at Oklo.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time for a couple of reasons. First of all, you have this confluence of growing energy demand driven by reindustrialization, electrification, AI, obviously, which gets all the headlines, combined with this huge push and innovation in nuclear about bringing forward this technology that's been sort of static and stagnant for a long time. Couple that with support from the capital markets and then this policy agenda that's unlocking nuclear. We're going to see this sort of era of nuclear flourishing come about where companies like ours are able to go and build more quickly than people have thought before, while also solving the bottlenecks like fuel supplies. This plutonium program is a perfect example as a bridge fuel to help us build more reactors sooner and then scale from there.
So what do you need to do to scale up then?
So we got to engineer and execute, obviously. We got to build. We got to work through the permitting process in an iterative fashion. And then we have to build out the infrastructure to build. That sounds funny, but it's not just about construction. It's also about getting the parts you need into the reactor, specifically fuel. We as a country have lapsed our ability to make fuel for nuclear reactors, especially advanced nuclear reactors, for decades now. Back in the 80s, we had more capacity than the rest of the world combined, and today we have so little. So now we're unlocking all these different vehicles to do so, including excess government materials that we're otherwise going to spend a lot of taxpayer money to just bury, but can actually be used as a bridge fuel to build more reactors sooner. That means more power plants online sooner, which means you start to compound that growth faster.
And you've been doing deals in terms of, you've got a deal with the Department of Energy. You kicked off 2026 with a deal with Meta. Tell us how you see that in terms of these partnerships that you've been announcing.
One of the great things about today with nuclear is you have customers who need the power existentially for one of the most important things in human history, AI. And Meta is a great flagship example of finding a partnership and a customer to build power plants to meet their needs where there's a huge amount of growth in the Ohio market. And that's just a start. But on top of that, we're partnering with the government to utilize their unique resources and using AI included in that to help us design reactors more quickly, help us drive through the learning processes more quickly. One of the things that's really exciting on the agentic kind of AI workflows, it's an extension of engineers to do more quickly, more efficiently, and that helps us actually scale into these opportunities like in kind of a pace that was unthought of before.
Well, I mean, look, this major partnership with Meta allows you to shore up the money that you need for this, right? So tell us more about that, because you're talking about developing up to 1.2 gigawatts of clean nuclear power in southern Ohio. And what is Meta's role?
So Ohio is one of the most exciting places for data center growth, and they have a huge amount of infrastructure to support it, but we need to bring on the power to do this. And Meta saw this as, hey, we should bring in additional power, because that helps with power prices. This is super important. But also it's a way that they can play a really important catalyzing role to bring these new generation technologies like ours forward. And so we've been working to site in Ohio and develop, a couple different locations there for some time. Saw a great opportunity to build our first sort of larger scale campus there and then sell the power to them, but through and on the grid, which helps alleviate pressure on the grid. And that is important because then you find your first customers to then scale with and then grow from. And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
And this is going to create jobs, right? How many jobs? Thousands of jobs? What would you say in terms of long-term investment and this Ohio facility? What does that mean for jobs?
I mean, in the first kind of big phase, we talk about the 1.2 gigawatts. It's the high hundreds of jobs. But then scaling beyond that, because we expect this to grow quite a bit, you are talking about thousands of jobs. Not to mention the derivative effects beyond that. But another really cool thing, we are excited to be working with some of the fuel providers to help us with the long-term fuel, sort of to refuel these plants. And one of the big producers is right next to us in southern Ohio. So it's a compounding benefit down there to sort of support that economy and what the producers of the fuel are doing with what we're doing on the power side. It has a pretty strong halo effect.
Look, I think it's a great idea, but the truth is you've got competitors all over the place now in terms of nuclear. So what do you want to say about the competitive landscape out there right now when you've got other companies that may be ahead of you in this same race?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think this is the thing is we've kind of proven out a pace of execution that's great, and we've also got sort of a unique positioning in the markets as well as with the customer offtakes. And we're solving all the things you need to solve. We're not deferring those because our business model is a little bit different. When we started this company, it wasn't about just designing reactors and trying to sell the designs. That's the sort of old playbook. What we said was, hey, what do customers really want here? They don't want to buy reactors. They want to buy power. So how do we make it easy for them to buy what they want? Well, we design, we build, we own, we operate, we sell the power. That gives us a huge advantage in terms of how we can interact with customers, but also solve deploying here. Because now we have to solve all the problems ourselves and not kick it off to somebody else, which will just slow everything down. Which is why then we're investing in the fuel supply chain, the capability to produce fuel, to fabricate fuel, to then put it in our reactors, including the long-term exciting things that we're doing on recycling, which allows us to tap into waste reserves. And actually one of the most exciting policy pieces that's happened is these nuclear lifecycle innovation campuses, which is actually bringing forward the view that waste is really just like 95% unused fuel. What that translates to is in the United States alone, the waste inventories that we think of negatively with advanced recycling like what we're doing, there's actually enough energy content in that waste to power the entire country for over 150 years.
Wow.
It's several Saudi Arabia's worth of oil energy content sitting above ground ready to be harvested, and we've developed in this country the technology, so we get to bring that forward. So I think that's one of the key things we're doing is that whole overarching piece that then allows us to bolt on some cool things like this whole isotope business.
Yeah.
So it just gives us this diversified angle that's
Let's
quite
talk about that because there's no debt. You've got a good capital position. You're expanding the partnership with the Idaho National Laboratory to use AI for advanced reactor and fuel system designs. I want to hear more about the isotope business. That's really where analysts believe the growth is going to come from.
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of opportunity here that a lot of people kind of underappreciate, partly because, you know, look, at the end of the day, isotopes play a really important role for healthcare, for medical treatments, for diagnostic imaging, for some unbelievably promising therapeutics. But we don't make these things in this country at anywhere near the sufficient quantities. It's a true story of scarcity. In fact, we've ceded the ability to make this completely to Russia and to China. We have to bring this back. We used to lead the world in this, and we can. And so one of the great things about what we've been able to do is have a very strong balance sheet to lean into these opportunities and start building. In fact, we're turning on our first reactor, hopefully very soon, in a matter of weeks, as part of this DOE reactor pilot program down in Texas, which is a pilot isotope production plant. And what we've shown is you can build it faster than people thought possible, as well as a cost that's totally different, and then open the door to start producing these things in quantities that change the game. And it also extends beyond just the medical side. It's also industrial and even space applications. Every really cool thing we've done in space has been powered by these isotopes.
Wow.
We don't make them anymore. So if we're serious about space exploration, which we are as a country and a society and a civilization, we need these, and we're going to be in a great position to make it.
You're right. Space is so important. And we talk about that all the time because it's a national security issue. But let's go back to the medical part of this, because I think our viewers really are interested in this. And this Texas facility for isotope production is aiding medical innovation like cancer treatments. Tell us more about that.
It's honestly incredible stuff. I mean, to put it kind of simplistically, one of the amazing things about these isotopes and these capabilities for therapeutics is you can bind them to these specific molecules, proteins, enzymes, peptides, that can target specifically and uniquely cancer cells. Go there and then deposit the radionuclide there that then basically the radiation kills those cells and not the healthy tissue around it.
Wow.
So unlike chemotherapy, which, you know, again, simplistically, is kind of killing the cancer cells faster than it's killing the rest of you, this is specifically only targeting the cancer cells. And we have not been able to research some of the most phenomenally promising capabilities here because we don't have enough isotopes to research with, just to research with, much less treat people with. So we have some that are phenomenally effective in treatments, but we've got to open the door, not just to supply those, but to open new medical capabilities and treatments that, like, drug discovery just doesn't even exist because they don't even have enough to research with, and we're aiming to help solve that.
I love that. Well, look, I know that all of us here and our viewers are rooting for you on that, for sure. Please keep going.
Yes.
Jake, great to have you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We so appreciate you. Jake DeWitte from Oklo.